two.
Welcome to the Clarinet Ninja Podcast. My name is Jay Hassler. As always, I'm doing my best to bring you the finest in clarinet information and entertainment. Today, I want to say once again thank you to Mr. James Danderfer for playing us in. If you like what you hear, always go down to the show notes and check out James and the wonderful music that he makes. Today, I'm lucky to have a friend of mine who've been friends for over 20 years. Well, wow.
Right.
If we'd had an adult child together when we first met, they'd be like a
miracle.
They'd be they would also be 30. This is my friend Dave Sapadin, and we're here today to talk a lot about becoming your own clarinet player. Coming from a real tradition of teaching, Dave's had some amazing teachers, some of which I share, and how you become your own player, and the equipment, the practice techniques that go along with it, in addition to taking on the role of educator and what that means in terms of one's development, but also what it means to keep the clarinet tradition alive with young and old. Welcome, Dave. How are you?
Great, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, man.
It's happy to see you. It's been a while, actually.
It has been a while. Yeah. When is the last time we saw each other?
Dublin.
That's it. That's
right.
correct. Yeah, that which was like a year and a half ago.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's funny. Like we live probably 3 miles from one another, and we meet in Dublin.
I think that's one thing about New Yorkers. If you want to meet a New Yorker, you have to get out of New York.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you have to get to see them in New York at all because they're too busy.
They're too busy, and that 3 miles seems like a long way to go.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, when Dave and I met each other, we were young. We were both married.
That's right.
And
in school.
And in school, and we subsequently got unmarried, got remarried, and had children. And so that gives us even less time. But here's what I want to get to. Like, we were talking before we turned on the recorder, and we were talking about equipment, and which is always a thing, right? And you have, I'm just going to say it, more of a lust for equipment than I do. And I'd love to hear, like, the host of clarinets you've played on, and why it is that you switched, and where you are now, and what you find in the clarinet that you have.
Okay, well, I started with a Buffet R13. It was my very first clarinet that I started with, and then I worked my way to a LeBlanc Opus, an Opus LeBlanc, because of studying with Ricardo Morales, and I switched because I was looking for more depth of sound, but I was also looking for more consistency with the intonation.
To me, you know, I played on a concerto because I couldn't afford the fancy one. But I think that was a real turning point in the manufacturing of clarinets, where all of a sudden, what was accepted in terms of evenness between registers, really the game changed.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. And it was such an obvious thing when I went from one to the next. I was like, wow, this just became easier to play, became easier to find I didn't have to adjust as much. And there was a huge period of transition of having to learn to not adjust. I spent all this time trying to make the R13 play in tune that all of a sudden, when you don't have to do that anymore, and I was still doing it on the instrument and I didn't have to, so it took me a while to get used to not adjusting.
I want to put a marker here to come back to this idea in terms of people learning the clarinet and what it means to essentially learn a habit and unlearn it later on. We'll get back to that though. And then after, can I add into this story?
Sure.
There was one. It's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. when you'd had them for a long time, but they got run over by a car, right?
Oh, yeah. It fell out of my case. I didn't realize that the upper joint of my Opus was slightly open, and it fell out of the case and into the street, and it had just been paved. So it was very soft sounding. So I didn't hear it fall out of the case when I went into the cab. And then when I was actually going to get it repaired, and it was missing. And I looked, I'm like, so I went looking around, and my super came up to me and said, hey, by the way, I noticed something on the street, and I picked it up because I knew it was yours. And I'm not really sure how he knew it was mine, but he he saw it looks like and then he said, "Okay, here you go," and it was just busted. It was awful.
It's funny now, not funny then. Right. So then
I still can't believe I didn't hear it fall out of my case. Though.
Something seems off about the story. I don't know what, but we'll let you tell it however you want. So you played on those for quite a while.
Yes.
And then, if I'm remembering, let's see if I get your. Then you switched to Bakun.
Yes.
Yes.
I switched to Bakun. I was really excited when they finally came out, and I was an early adopter for their the barrels and the bells, and I was using that on the Opus, and then the instrument came out, and then I was trying to figure out how I can afford it, and Bakun helped me. Maury ended up helping me be able to make a payment plan to be able to make it happen, and finally I got the instruments, and so it was a Cocobolo Bakun, a MOBA. That's what it was.
And you played on those for quite a while.
Yes.
And now you have recently changed to what's kind of a new player, but not really a new player because I've been making clarinet for years, but a new in terms of the French system,
yes.
correct? Right? Am I
That's right.
This right?
Yes.
And I'll say I'm embarrassed to try and pronounce the name because I know I'm going to get it a little bit wrong. So
it's a Ubel.
Ubel.
Ubel, I guess.
Ubel?
I might not even be saying it right, but I've always known it just to be Ubel.
Okay. I've played those instruments at the convention and stuff. I've never really sat with one for a long time. I'm curious to know what... Bakun's a wonderful instrument. So is so is the Opus, so is the R13. What's...
Well, it was funny because Ricardo wanted me to switch. He wanted me to come along with him.
Okay.
He didn't want to go alone. And it was kind of funny that he was right at the beginning when he was doing it, and he said to me, "I want you to try this and see what you think and compare it." And so the person that picked the instrument for me was actually my wife. Because I said to her, I said, "If you don't think that this sounds better than this instrument, then I will stay on this instrument." And so in comparison, in a blind comparison, she picked the Ubel each time. And she was sad. Because it was a lot of money.
That's clarinets have gotten expensive.
Yes, very expensive. It was over $7,000.
No.
So it was an investment, and then, but it was to me it was for me. I needed something a little bit more help when it came to focusing the sound, and the MOBAs, I had to work hard to make that happen. And so for me, I was I'm more of a bass clarinet player than an E flat clarinet player, and so I'm always trying to get things up to pitch, and I needed something to help me with that a little bit more. And the MOBAs were made if you're an E flat player, I can see the MOBAs being an incredible instrument for you. But if you're a bass clarinet player, I can see that that's an instrument that you'd be having to try to focus the sound. And that's kind of like where I was coming from. And the Ubels kind of have more of a focus of the sound to me that made it easier for me to achieve it.
Tell me if you agree with this. Like, I always feel like when I'm playing an instrument that has more focus and traditional ring to it, it's more uneven than a clarinet that is even tends to have a darker sound, I think, naturally speaking, but also is harder to focus.
Yeah,
I think those things go together, and I think it's one of those things that when people are picking instruments, I think it's important to keep that in mind, because like I still feel like maybe you fixed it with the Ubel, but like everything's a compromise.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And
it's what you're willing to put up with.
Right.
You know, you get this, but you don't get that. You get this, but you don't get that. And it's like it's a real compromise sometimes of what you want. And it's what makes it easier for you to do what you do. So for me, it was easier to do what I did on the Ubels for me. It was easier for me to create music and be able to tap into more of the artistry than the nuts and bolts of trying to make the clarinet sound correct.
Right. I mean, what's super ironic for me is I've ended up on an RC Prestige, which existed before all of this happened.
Yes.
But Americans didn't want to play it.
Yes.
Super weird. Super weird stuff. You have been an incredibly successful teacher. And I know this because we don't really share a student, but a student at my school where I teach is first clarinet in New York State.
Yes.
We won't mention her name because we want to keep her privacy, but hopefully she watches this and knows that we're thinking about her. And I don't actually know her that well. But I've also subbed for you, and I've sat in front of your students and I've heard them play really wonderfully. And I'm curious to know if you have any sort of magic to share with us in terms of how you get such great results out of students.
I think I really am truly an open book when
You?
I'm truly an open book to my students, to my friends, and I approach. When I teach them, they really get to know who I am and the struggles that I have of daily life, of clarinet playing, of pretty much everything, and I want them to know that it's not just them that's struggling to do life's navigations, but that also including myself. It's like I know I have the same things. I'm going through the same things, but yet I still am finding time. It's how I share my passion with them. I think that's the number one thing, is that they know that I'm on their team and that no matter what happens, that they're not going to be yelled at in my lesson, and that I'm sharing with them. I'm not dictating to them. I'm not just saying, okay, well, this is the way it is and that's it. I believe that I'm just like, we're hanging out. This is kind of like, feels like my lesson setting. How this feels right now is how I feel it is every time I teach my students. We have this kind of rapport, and I try to get into I try to give them a little break. I think the most important part is to know when they need to not play any clarinet anymore and need to talk about something that's not clarinet. And I do that to clear the slate a little bit, to see if they heard what I said. So I distract them on purpose. And so I'll say something totally not clarinet related, just about something that happened with my son or me, and tell a story. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Hey, let's hear that one more time. Just to see if they listen to remember, or do they go back to what they were doing, an autopilot.
Right.
And I catch them. And so sometimes that happens. And so I think it's important for me. I do a lot of modeling. I do a lot of trying to play for them and show them what I want them to do. I do a lot of, I want you to practice this way, and I'll show you why my way works. Let's try my way, and let's see how far along we can get doing what I'm asking, how I want you to do these things. And so a lot of time there's a disbelief, because the way that they were told from other teachers, it doesn't always match up with what I'm asking for them to do. So they go back to what their old teachers said. And then they come back and doing exactly the way they did. And I'm like, no, well, did you do what I asked you to do? And most of the time it's no. It's frustrating, I must say. But each time I have to show. It's kind of like when Yoda showed Luke Skywalker how to lift the X-wing from the swamp, and you still have to show the power of the master. Still has to be shown for the student to go, oh, now I believe.
Well, listen, like I think that you're bringing up something that is true for all of us, right? Which is, if you have a teacher that you really believe in, and then you move on to another teacher that you also believe in, there's an internal conflict. If those teachers are saying things that either are different or seem different,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes it is different, but sometimes it just is a different vocabulary. Sometimes
Yes.
it's just a slightly different thing. That they're trying to get even something very nuanced to be different, but it is hard to let go of those things. Mm-hmm. And I do think that your personality has a gravitational pull that I think can yank people a different direction.
I try. I try to get them off that.
Right.
And say, hey, we're together now. We're gonna savor the flavor of me for a second, and we're gonna try my way for a second.
Do you think that a lot of people feel like they're in a position where they need to renounce, like, that what I used to believe is no longer true, which that's not true.
No.
Right? I mean, you're successful because of those things. And it reminds me of when I was doing like a lot of self-help, sort of self-betterment sort of studying, and talk about the idea that what got you to this point might be what's holding you back from the next thing. Like it could be those very things that made you successful to where you are that are preventing you from further success. And I think that that's something that I think happens when because most of the people we're talking about are high school age kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some college. A lot of now I have 7 students at Montclair State.
Right.
So that now and this is the most I've had at the school, and it's been a journey, being in charge of someone else's path when you're still kind of worrying about yours.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things I thought for a long time is like there's a moment where I realized I remember my dad being this age, and then thinking to myself, I don't have any idea what's going on. And maybe he didn't either.
Yeah.
Right? And I think if anyone feels like they've reached the end of their journey, or that that there's no further growth to have, I think then that's probably not a person that is going to be a good teacher, really. I mean, in a lot of ways. What skills do you find after you got a lot of data points? What skills do you find are the most challenging for people to really take in?
The difference between support and volume.
Okay.
I think that's number one. That's really difficult to you can say that and it makes sense when you say it out loud, but It's another thing. Like, someone told me one time, like, hey, by the way, it's really much harder to take the weight off than it to keep the weight off than it is to take it off. And like when you're in the process of doing it, thank you very much, really, and then when you're in the middle of it, and then you realize that, then you're like, hey, it really is difficult to keep it off. That now it's not a master of the obvious because you're living through it. But it's kind of funny because when you first say it to you, I was actually upset. When someone was telling me, I was actually pissed off about it because, like, thank you, master of the obvious. But it's not. It's when you're living and walking in those shoes, it's another story.
I mean, cliches are cliches because the lived experience makes it so crystal clear.
Yeah.
Right. But cliches are also annoying because they can be, like that. A lot of people in my ecosystem are adults who get information from a lot of places, and I think it's one of the things that I don't want to start selling my program in the middle of this, although I will, is that having somebody guiding you is really, really important, right? Because in all of that, trying to play the clarinet, you're trying to do lots of different things at once. And it's really important to have somebody who has a lot more experience to say, great, focus more on this one thing.
Yes.
Right now. And I love the idea of support versus volume, right? Because a lot of people do, and I'm sure I have, just blow harder, right? Because a lot of times when we're growing up,
use more air.
Right.
That's the classic.
Yeah.
That's what people always get to hear. Use more air. And then I always got pissed off. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
I always got pissed off when they were saying that when I was playing piano. How we're playing soft here, use more air. I'm like, how is that possible? How am I supposed to use more air and play softer? And it wasn't until later on that I understand the idea of the speed of air and versus the volume of air. And that's the thing. It's controlling the speed of air and which the intensity at which you're bringing the speed of air out, and that level of it is the game changer between the two. To understand the both, because a lot of times people use more air, so then they only think that they're supporting the sound when they're playing loud. But what happens when you play soft? And that issue is where the I don't understand between the support and the volume there,
The thing that I used to think is, why do band teachers say stuff like that? But then when I have now, in one of the sections of my life, become a band teacher, I get why they say it. Because you need a result right then. And if that gets you a result right then, that's your goal.
Yes.
And so I think that does become a real situation from somebody who's plays well in their band, but then decides to take it another step further and start taking lessons and start really pursuing it. There is an important difference there. And I think that's one of those things that the skill that got you there is going to prevent you from getting there. And I think that's where you're unlearning something. Unlearning seems a lot more difficult than learning.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Because this becomes a habit and
You don't even know you're
you
doing
don't
it.
even know you're doing it. Yes. It's
Yeah.
hard to undo that. Until you start hearing the changes of intonation and quality of sound issues that happen from your changing, which is what the instrument ends up which the instrument change highlights. And so then you start to hear, oh, I don't like that sound.
Well, because I think one of the big challenges is to really help somebody, or even help ourselves, understand what the clarinet actually sounds like when we're playing it. That sounds kind of stupid, but it turns out to be true, I think, most of the time. If somebody is going to make a change in their sound, they have to be listening to it as if they haven't heard it their entire life, like this. Because you know who I've heard play the clarinet more than anybody in the world? This guy, right? So some things that are weird can get passed by because I'm just so used to hearing them.
Yes.
Right, and I think that going back to the idea of modeling for people, I mean that's where they start to not hear it. I remember the first time I went to play for Ricardo, he was living on 60th Street or so in a very small apartment, and I just remember hearing him play and thinking, "The heck is that?" Because it was so much different than anything I'd ever heard before, and to be hearing it that close, it was one of those it was a startling thing, and and again going to that idea of sort of changing from one track to another track and adopting a new idea. It was really hard for me to be like, okay, that's the thing now. Because, then I went back and I practiced and auditioned for school and got in. Then that's just the beginning of like really being able to hear that in my own playing. And there'd be times where I remember I was at a lesson with Ricardo and he goes, yeah, it sounds good. But when you go from F to G, the color totally changes. I was like, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah.
And then I went home and I recorded myself and I listened very carefully and I was like, oh yeah, it's actually happening. But I would have never known,
Right.
And to be honest, we're talking about a super nuanced difference at that point. Then maybe most people wouldn't have noticed. But that I feel like is the thing that Ricardo does better than anybody else is hear. Like he hears what he wants on the clarinet more clearly than I've ever experienced with anybody. I mean, granted, there's probably a list of another however many people that do it on that level. I just haven't spent that time with them
Oh,
to
I get it.
actually
Yep.
see them do it up close. But I think that's when somebody is trying to change their sound. Agree or disagree? Then I'll stop talking. As long as you agree. That I think when somebody is trying to get that difference between blowing harder and supporting,
Yes.
a lot of it is actually being able to cue into what they actually sound like.
And also to go along with that problem,
Right.
is more about what they know the sound to be up close versus what it sounds like a little bit distant, far away from them, and what they're trying to achieve up close doesn't necessarily translate into what it sounds like in the hall, into the distance. And so they have to, in order to, sometimes in my lessons, I will say to them, I know I sound this way when you're sitting this close to me. I will make them walk up and go a distance from me, and I will play exactly the same way. And the look on their faces of like, that does not sound the way you sound like up close. I go, yes, correct. And that's the beginning parts of changing what they hear, because you have to change their ear to what they're supposed to listen to up close, instead of trying to create this warmth of sound and trying to create this, I'm trying to get this warm sound. No, you're not. You're not. You're trying to create focus. And then as it expands into the hall, then you get warmth of sound. But when you create warmth of sound up close, that's when it gets diffused as it goes further away. And you start to, only the flute players in the orchestra get to enjoy your beautiful sound, and no one in the hall can hear you. You're too dark to be able to project. You're too warm and too rich to be able to cut through the orchestra. There's no way you're going to be heard. And it's always interesting to me when I hear people up close and when I hear them far away, how different they sound. It's crazy. And I think they don't understand that. And no one really points that out to the students before they get to me. And until I show them this little bit, and I make them go different distances so they can hear how different my sound is. See, now this is the distance 3 people away from me. This is the distance 5 people away from me. And each time they go further back, it just sounds different and different and different. And they're amazed. And so, well, I didn't think you're. I said, and a lot of times, like I heard you the entire time in the concert, and I know you were playing piano. I said, do you really think I was? Because I was probably playing mezzo piano, just to get it out there. But it gives the illusion of piano. From capturing the essence of the dynamic. It doesn't necessarily, there's nobody in the gauge with a dynamic gauge in the hall saying, "Oh, you know what? That was not an official piano." But sometimes you just need to create contrast, and that's all you need to do. Oh, this is softer than this section. Great. Nailed it. You don't have to worry about it being piano. Anyway.
I want to pivot this into your aha moments. An aha moment I had when I was studying with Ricardo. He said, dynamics, a forte, is a color as much as it is an actual decibel amount. And he said, if you hear a marching band from a distance, they're not loud, but they're playing loud.
Yes.
And that was an interesting sort of like, oh.
Ricardo told me, and I'll never forget. He goes, "Hey, Dave." He was frustrated with me. He said, Dave, you know what a good clarinet sound is. Why don't you just make one? And I thought that was, but there's a lot of genius behind that statement because he's right. I just laughed and I told him to take it easy. And both of us started laughing, but still, he was right. There is a level of that too, where you actually do know. We get so involved in the notes and the notes in front of us that we lose sight. We're in survival mode and we forget about trying to, oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to make this sound pretty.
Well, here's what I take from that is when I hear people that are trying to do everything they know how to do, which is all of us when we're trying to play the clarinet, if there's something that you're working on, whether from the very beginning levels of like reading the right notes and knowing the fingerings, or working on your articulation, whatever part of it is that you're paying more attention to, it is hard to do all these things at once.
Yeah.
And if one is taking more attention, it's hard. Like you're not going to hear things.
Yes.
Right. And I think that also when I hear that story, I think to myself, if I would have just listened really carefully and been able to do everything Ricardo said in the first lesson he gave me, I wouldn't have needed any more. Because the rest of the time, every time I've ever played the clarinet for him, he said some version of those same things. It is weird when somebody sort of smacks you in the face with something like,
I'll say,
like it gets weirder when you're kind of more grown. Because we're you, me, and Ricardo, we're all within 5 years of age.
Yeah, he's younger than us, which is just...
Well, he's only younger by even 2 months. You're the old one.
I am the old one.
but it also, not so much now that we're all old guys with kids, but when we were young guys without kids, it was harder to take it, like internally, yeah. Right? Because you're undeniably right, and coming with the goods every time you picked up the clarinet made it worse. It made it harder to take in some way.
For me, he used to schedule my lesson right before lunch because he knew how depressed I'd be. After the lessons, and he won't even try to make me feel better. So he could, come on, we'll go to lunch now. And it was always scheduled me for lunch. It was always funny.
Okay, so here's what I want to hear. I'm springing this on you. Oh, and by the way, you're the first person that has come in for a live podcast in the brand new Clarinet Ninja podcast studio.
I love it.
Yes. Anyway, you studied with Yehuda.
Yes.
Who, it seems like everything that comes out of his mouth is an aha moment for somebody.
For sure.
Give me one of them from Yehuda.
Yehuda does sneaky things. And in the way that he'll ask you to do something and you don't know why you're doing it, but all of a sudden it gets better. And then he says, there you go, the lesson's over. After you've gotten better from what he had to tell you. The one thing, you're like, well, there you go, lesson's over. That was all you needed, buddy. And I'm like, wait a second, okay, we'll keep going. But most of the time it was all air related. It was always, it was everything was about, the aha moment would be air. And sometimes I would look at my old books from him, and it looked like he carved air, like he wrote it like this. Air, like he was out of anger.
I remember when I was picking a school in Los Angeles. I went to USC, and he was giving a master class, and he said one of the funniest things I've ever heard. He's notably funny, I think,
Oh
right? Yeah.
yes.
Somebody was playing Dvorak New World solo. And they play it. Sounds great. And he says to a student in the audience, "What piece is this from?" And the kid sort of very sheepishly said, "I don't know." And he goes, "Well, you have to know this one. And if you don't know it, I don't know isn't the right answer. You say, it's on the tip of my tongue."
uh,
I never ended up. I've never met him, which is weird. I think it's weird. I've met a lot of people in the clarinet world. I've never met him.
because he's so busy, that guy.
Well, but
It's crazy.
I've met a lot of busy people. I mean, like it's just one of those things where it's like,
I mean, he's always busy.
yeah.
He's constantly traveling everywhere, that guy. But yeah, it's funny because I've been very far removed from Yehuda now. It's been when I was studying with him was in 1986 through 90, so it's been a second. But
I haven't been one time.
but I loved my lessons with him and Mitchell Lurie. I mean, both of them were, I mean, crazy. But with Yehuda, it was just the bombardment of his innovativeness of teaching you. And back in the day, he would make us lay down on the ground and do long tones while his foot was on our stomach. And he would do things where we had to do a sit up while we were practicing the long tone. He's like, up! And I have to sit up while I was playing the long tone, down! And I'd go down. Now he doesn't do that. I've heard he makes people go on a exercise bicycle and do long tones.
Nice.
And as he's doing it, you're engaging the core as you're moving your legs, and he puts it in this thing, and you feel so it's always in trying to engage the core. He was with him. It was just a bombardment of musical. The thing for him was up when I was working on the Brahms sonatas with him, and how much over the top that he wanted me to do, and I thought it was crazy, and I just thought it was too much until I heard a recording of it and realized that I barely did anything.
Well, it's funny. One of the things, again, I agree with this. One of the things that I think is that when we're told something on a particular day, that thing is true. But if then you take that on and you do it, and then you start from that same place 3 years later, you're going to be doing way too much, right? Because that instruction was good for that day to get you from where you were to where you should be. But you can't keep giving yourself that instruction, otherwise it would be too much. And I think, I'm curious to know, like, again, I'm springing this on you, reflecting on your own life, reflecting on your experience with your students, would you say that, like, there's a lot of times where if somebody does take something on and they do the thing, you have to say, now you can stop doing the thing? Because a lot of times I'll end up saying the opposite to somebody after they've done exactly what I've asked, which then makes it seem like I'm full of crap.
I feel like people have to learn where too far is. They have to live there. You have to live where too far is, and then bringing it back a little after that. So whenever someone goes too far, I laugh, but I love it. And I want them to continue living there for a second, because they do the adjustment themselves. Because you can listen to it when you hear the recording, like, oh, that's a little much. And then they just bring it back just a little bit. But I find that just to get them to, in a general sense, to push them to this far is such a chore, just to get them to go there and to play over the top ridiculous, just to get them to go down. Hey, let's hear, sometimes get them to play louder. Let's hear what ridiculous sounds like. Let's play this too loud, and then they'll play it, and I'll say, that was mezzo forte.
Well,
that was mezzo forte.
Every time I've judged a high school contest, people playing clarinet, a lot of really good players. The thing that dictates who gets the prize is who makes the most dynamic contrast.
Yeah.
Done. That's it. And it's funny because it's so consistent.
Yes.
And then and that's where I think teaching and being in that position, being in that room, makes me realize, you know what, I'm not exempt from that either. Right?
I,
It's a good reminder that that's how we all
I
are.
also think that the pandemic has ruined a lot of players, and the fact that their ability to want to play out, and because of the fact that you couldn't play too loud because my sister's in the other room trying to study, my dad's over here, my mom's over here. I gotta practice, but I'm gonna do it quiet so I don't disturb anybody.
Interesting.
And so I think because of that, been fighting that with the current students to try to get them, no. You have to know what forte is. Let them come out. It's time to piss some people off in your house. It's time to play forte. You just can't play forte and expect it to only happen on the job if you never practice it at home. There's no way it's going to happen. You have to say, okay, everyone, I'm going to play forte on this run through. And it has to happen. And so sorry.
No. The thing that I wanted to sort of add in terms of a practice technique, again, please agree with this, is that it's good to practice things that are radically different because in real time, sometimes some stuff happens. It comes out different. Like you need to be able to play the thing that you practice to play it a certain way.
Yes.
In order to play it that way, you have to practice it a lot of other different ways so you can intentionally play it that way so you've got more a sense of controls over everything. And I think that that's a really good thing for us to remember is that a lot of times practicing in a way that is different is going to actually help us get what it is that we want. Is simply just trying to repeat what it is that you want and never go out of that box.
Yes.
It's going to actually, when the chips are down, when you're sitting in an audition or you're at a performance and something has gone differently than you expected it to, and you're not in that place where it's your best place to do this one thing, which we're never going to be in those situations, you don't have the wherewithal to turn the dials to get it where you want it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think also that we were talking about, to go back a little bit.
Sure.
You were talking about I don't really, in my lessons, I don't worry about trying to get them through repertoire. It's not my concern. To me, I want to fix the clarinet problems. And I'm trying to I'm using the music as a tool to fix that. And so what I find is that people are so concerned we're trying to get through the next piece. And I'm always like, yeah, but the clarinet problems are still existing. And so because they're still there, the piece doesn't sound as good as it should. And so fixing the clarinet problems and using the piece to fix the clarinet problems. And then I find that, I find myself teaching them to not accept.
Interesting.
And the fact that that's the issue with their playing is that they accept it because they say, okay, well, I played all the right notes and rhythms. I say, yeah, but let's put it on a recording? Let's put it on Spotify? Let's put it on stage? You ready? You nailed it? No. What's wrong with it? It's not, there's something else going on. It's missing, isn't there? It's the clarinet playing. And so that's a thing that I feel that my students don't spend enough. They worry about the perfection of the music instead of the perfection of the clarinet playing.
When we, at a certain point in teaching and learning and playing the clarinet, playing the right notes at the right time, it's a starting place.
Sure.
And I think that's a change for a lot of students, right? Playing the right notes at the right time, that's the goal.
That is a change for a lot of students.
Well, and it's a mighty goal at a certain point.
Yeah.
And still, depending on what's in front of me, that might still be a mighty goal. But it's still just the beginning of when the music making is actually able. Not that one should separate it out and not do music making while you're getting to that point, but it is definitely a thing that I think surprises a lot of high school age students, particularly. Like, okay, great, you've met the minimum requirement by learning the right notes at the right time.
But they're surprised that you have anything to say after they've achieved that greatness. Right? Like after they've achieved the rhythms and all the right notes and everything like that, then it's like, okay, great. Well, here's what's wrong with it. What do you mean what's wrong with it? No one else is talking to me about what's wrong with it. They're just telling me how great I sound with all the notes and that I learned it and I have it up to tempo. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
And I find that I have to, then there's a disbelief in my students that it takes a second for them to kind of get behind it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you are hard to believe sometimes.
That's true too.
Well, but also when I hear this, and I'm pulling on your effectiveness in your teaching, is that like there's a lot of like the idea that you're teaching kids not to accept things, sort of a negative thing, but you are so joyful in your presentation of clarinet and everything. I think you can give what's essentially kind of a negative frame to put something in that doesn't seem like it, right? Because everybody's laughing so much and everyone's having such a good time. It's because like sometimes.
Well, most of the time it's me laughing at them, but and then they know that, and then they laugh along with me because they know that what I said was funny and ridiculous, and then they get on board and they realize.
Well, there's a lot of trust that goes along with that too, right? I mean, I think that's an important thing as well. And when somebody is an authentic person who's open and there's a lot of trust that goes along with that, and I think that's a really important thing. And I think that when you're working with somebody of any age, we all need to take what we're doing very seriously, but perhaps not take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's the middle ground where everything is okay.
I try to let them know that I let them in on what it is that I'm working on in my own playing, and say this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm working on right now, and I'll talk to them about it, and they'll listen and they'll hear me what I'm saying, and not that that this is coming from the mountaintop. That what I'm saying right now shall be said and it shall be written. It's not really where I am with them. They know that, and there's sometimes where I don't have the answer and we figure it out together, and
Right.
there's a lot of that sometimes because I show them how I come up with the answer. I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't know what the problem is here. It could be a couple things. Let's try this first. Let's see if it fixes it, and then we'll try. Most of the time. Funny enough, I find it's never embouchure related. It's always air and throat related, or fingers.
Interesting.
And I find that the embouchure is overemphasized. I'm so pissed off about it. Every time I get a new student, it's like, look, it's not the embouchure. I demonstrate. First thing I say, watch. I'm gonna play with an awful embouchure. So I'll do this. And I'll play as beautifully as I can. And they'll all look at that. Wasn't that bad? I go, yeah, I don't know. Now I'm going to play with a perfect embouchure and play and sound awful. And they'll look at me. And I'll go, you see, it's not the embouchure. It's the way that you're putting the air in the instrument. If I put the air in the clarinet like this, that's what it sounds like. If I put the air in the clarinet, that's what it sounds like. It has to do with the direction and the intensity of the airstream. And the embouchure is just there to help you with consistency. And the embouchure moves because it's making up for what the air isn't doing. So you know what a good clarinet sound is, and when you don't hear it, you start adjusting the embouchure. But that's the quick fix way. The real answer is, yeah, fix it with the air now. Don't change the embouchure at all. See what you can do about maybe all of a sudden you start fixing it with the air, and then you get projection, you get focus, you get resonance, you get with that sound that you dream of. All of a sudden your reed sounds better, and it has nothing to do with the embouchure whatsoever. And then all of a sudden the embouchure can just sit. If you hear what you want to hear, then you don't have to adjust the embouchure. Then the embouchure would never move. And a lot of times it's like connections of the fingers. Oh, I put my finger down, just a little hesitate. Oh, that note didn't come out. But what gets blamed? The embouchure. The embouchure gets blamed, not the fact that you didn't put the finger down appropriately, or that the connection to the fingers, that you didn't go, oh, I mishit that key. Let me change my embouchure. And you're not realizing it's the fingers. And so the fingers are the other things. That was my biggest aha moment in my playing, is fingers. Is how the fingers can change the quality of sound, and how it affects response, and how much I blame everything for what my fingers are doing. It's really annoying, actually. It still is.
Well, cover something here.
I'm still rather pissed off about it.
I don't want you to leave the first day of the podcast studio upset. At least not about
I
that.
started getting upset just now.
Oh, but in picking out the thing that really attracted my attention, I think the biggest lesson that we can give as teachers to anybody learning the clarinet, particularly younger people, because a lot of older people have already figured this out, is that it's not about having the answer. It's about knowing how to figure out the answer,
Yes.
right? And actually giving a young person the confidence to that I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out is strong.
I give them a checklist. Here's what you should check first. How's your support? How is the air? What's going on with there? What's going on with your fingers? What's going on in your throat? And embouchure is the last thing I let them check. Once those things are taken care of, watch. Do you need to worry about the embouchure? Most of the time they get through that checklist and embouchure's last. They never get to embouchure. They don't have to. And then usually it's just taken care of. It's really unbelievable, actually. And they're surprised too, because the answer or the way to fix the problem isn't what they expected it to be.
Right.
They expected to have to do something with the embouchure, but most of the time they're changing their embouchure for the improper playing that they're doing to fix to adjust it to the sound they want.
So much of learning is understanding that you're fixing the thing that has the impact over the thing you're trying to fix. Like you're adjusting the thing that is going to have the greatest impact on what it is that you're trying to change. And it can get really hairy in all of it. And what I've always found is that if somebody came in playing exactly like me, I could fix that stuff real fast. But it's hard for me to fix it for myself.
Sure.
And again, I see it all the time in teaching where somebody is reflecting to me that I have the same challenge. It's masked because I, in theory, play the clarinet better than the person that I'm working with, right? So it's not up front and center. But giving particularly high school kids the ability to say, identify the problem, be able to then deduce what's causing the problem, and then how to fix the problem. That's a transferable skill to anything that they want to do.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the things that's really, really wonderful about studying the clarinet on that level in that way. And I think that it
definitely affects other parts of their life.
For sure.
The way they study, the way they are with people, it's pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. And I just had this conversation with one of my students today. Before I came out of lesson, and sadly they have senioritis because they already got advance notice of where they're going to school for college, and now he's mailing it in. And so I just kind of and I said to him, let me ask you, other than the clarinet, now that you've just I'm medium about this, right? I'm not into it right now. I'm like, okay. Is there anything else in your life that you're feeling the same way? They go, across the board. Yes. And it starts with one thing. And you start with their I'm going to accept this. I'm going to accept this. And then you start accepting things in other parts of your life. And then you start accepting, and it snowballs. And all of a sudden, you're not doing what you should in biology. You're not doing what you should be doing in your math class. You're not doing what you should be doing. All of a sudden, that C's okay now. Is it though? And then when you want to turn it on, are you all of a sudden, can you turn that switch? You can't. You have to keep it at a certain level of not accepting what's not right for you, and let it grow into when you all of a sudden now you're a freshman in college, and you let that grow. Now I'm out of school, and it just keeps going and going. But if you let it shut off, then all of a sudden other things go into your life, and you can't switch it back on because you don't know how.
Well, and I think it goes to the whole thing of was everything that you were doing in service of getting into the college you wanted to go to? There wasn't any benefit to learning and becoming good at stuff, because that's ultimately where people get to call their own shots, right? When you have a way of going about everything that no matter what situation you're in, you're able to figure out what to do, how to do it, and how to be successful. Is everything got to be, I'm doing this for some other reason than the actual thing that I'm doing? That's a complicated way to go. And
there's definitely a level of entitlement that goes with it too.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure,
A level of oh, well, Well, I'm going to college, so everything's coming good now. I got it all. I got it coming
But
on.
when I remember being that age, I mean, there's a certain amount of that that's unavoidable. When you got a long future and it's all looking bright.
Oh yeah. I would never want to relive my 20s. I got to tell you, there's never. I think about that. I'm 57, and there's no way that I would ever want to go back to 23 or 24. Ew. Is this the right move? Is this the thing? Or should I be, who should I be talking to? And now I'm kind of like,
Right, where you honestly believe that everything that happens is the most important thing that's ever happened. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So concerned about your path, and now it's like I know the path that I'm on, and I'm comfortable with it, and I'm okay. I see the direction I'm heading in, and I'm okay with it, and there's nothing more to add to or to subtract to. I have to stay the course. And make sure I stay on top of the product that I'm putting out, and that's what most of the time that's all I'm worrying about.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about other people's playing. I'm just concerned if I put out my good product, then it's comparable, and I feel like I'm in the ballpark, and as long as I take care of my own product, and so I spend a lot of time doing that.
Speaking of comparing, a conversation again that we were having before, Mazaki told me one day that Per Brevig told him. It's pretty deep, right? That, and for those that don't know, these are trombone players. Per Brevig told him, if you become somebody that plays just as well as Joel Alessi plays, the best you're ever going to be is the second best Joel Alessi.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think that there's something to that. There is some way in which, and that might provide a great career, but is that going to provide the satisfaction that somebody wants? Is that a goal that somebody should inadvertently make? But listen, in case you're interested in more Dave Sapadin, we're going to shut this podcast down and we're going to go prove something. And if you're watching this, the video will be out when you're watching it. If you're listening to it, we're going to prove this question. Does a ligature change the tone of a clarinet? Because I was told that this new Ricardo Morales ligature was going to change my life.
I think it will.
And so we're gonna move on to that now. Dave, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
And watch the ligature video. It's coming next. And as always, don't hesitate to go to clarinetninja.com. Check out the Clarinet Ninja Dojo, all the things it has to offer you if you're an adult clarinet player that is looking to really increase the level of your improvement. What a great time you can have. Really figure out, how to do the things that you've been struggling with as a clarinet player. Clarinet Ninja Dojo is a great place for you. And I'd love to see you there. If you have any questions, email me. Go on Facebook, join the Clarinet Ninja Forum. There's lots of ways to get in touch with me. I'm the only one in my business, and I will respond to you personally. That's it. See you next time.
Bye.
Clarinet Ninja Podcast.